So is there a relationship between being vulnerable and being a leader? Professor Brene Brown talks about the fact that we as leaders ought to let our guards down. Why? Apparently because 1, it's not a sign of weakness, and 2, it is not really a choice.
It is asking a lot for people to show up into a culture that can be uncomfortable because we're pushing and stretching. But what leaders can do is normalize the fact that, hey, I'm uncomfortable too. And this is courage, and this is what I'm calling you, and reward that behavior. For constructive feedback to be real, it should be uncomfortable because I am, telling you that things should be differently. So discomfort is really, I don't know what's happened with the culture. I think in the last decade, we've been in so much fear because there's been so much scarcity, political, economic, social scarcity. I think a lot of people were raised to believe that. It was modeled, I think, certainly in our culture. We see that a lot, that to be vulnerable, to be open, to be exposed is to be weak. And the truth is, what I found in my research is that vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, I would argue that it's our greatest measure of courage. When we went out and asked people, what is vulnerability? We heard things like, vulnerability is the first date after my divorce. Vulnerability is starting my own company. Vulnerability is taking responsibility for something that went wrong at work. Vulnerability is sitting with my wife who has stage 3 breast cancer and making plans for our young kids. Vulnerability is taking my business public. The definition I use in my work of vulnerability is simply uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Vulnerability is about the willingness to show up and to be seen even when there are no guarantees.